good morning. I'm excited to be here. What about you, Candice?
I'm always excited to be here.
So we're going to just keep it moving and do something different again today. A couple of weeks ago, you interviewed me and kind of put me in the hot seat and asked me a few questions, made me a little uncomfortable, but I had a ton of fun. And I think it's really, really important to just continue to share pieces and parts of ourselves and our stories and the kind of work that we do, so that if there's folks listening that haven't met us in person yet that might be intrigued in one way or another to reach out and ask questions, or we might be able to continue to offer support to those around us. So today you get to be in the hot seat and I get to ask you a couple of questions.
All right, sounds good.
You hear me playing my desk drums? That's my desk drum.
Right
So I think one of the things that I think is fascinating about you and some of the work that you do is you do a ton around intuition and how helping people how to trust our intuition and how to work from that space. I guess whether it's from our heart or from our gut or another piece of our body, or I don't know. I mean, you're the expert on intuition. So I would love to learn more from you about intuition. But before we get to that point, I would love for you to just share a little bit about your background for those that don't know where you came from and kind of how you landed on this path of entrepreneurship and coaching and really working with groups of people around the globe and teaching them how to dial into their intuition and how to live their best lives. So, would you mind giving everyone a bit of your background?
Yeah, so we only have like 20, 30 minutes, so I don't know.
That's okay. You're not that old, so it shouldn't take that long. Only
I
because you're
don't
way
look
younger than
that
me.
old. I don't look that old is the question there. Yeah, so man, I was born a psychic medium, but I didn't know that. So psychic mediumship is just I have the ability to perceive, and my belief is everyone is a psychic medium, which I can get into a little bit later, which informs how I do my work now.
Mhm.
But I didn't know it. So the thing I was really good at when I say I was born is when I was a kid, uh, my parents did not have the ability to lie to me. So, for example, they were trying to talk to me about Santa Claus, and instantly I'm like, that's not true. I already like, why? And what happened with that was I could feel how important it was to my parents for me to accept this lie that they were creating. And that's just an example. There were other things where I would just know what was and what wasn't true as a little girl. And then I would know a lot. So one of the things that I would also do was I used to like to climb on things when I was a girl, and my parents hated it. I would freak them out. Like I'd climb upstairs and climb on cabinets and all sorts of stuff. And so I found that if I got really still, I could feel in my body, I'd get this sensation, and I could tell where my parents were in our apartment or when we moved and we had a house. And then I could feel if they were coming to check on me. And so I would like do whatever I wanted to do. And then like, oh, they're coming. And then I would get all like little good girl when they came to like check on me, like, see, I'm good. And then as soon as they were gone, I would do whatever I wanted to do. So those are kind of like subtle ways that my mediumship manifested themselves. And then this weird thing also happened throughout my childhood and into my teenage years, which was I pretty much, if I wanted something, I would get it.
Okay.
And my parents were like middle class until late. We just kind of slowly slid into lower middle class as the older I got. So it wasn't because of like status or money or connections. And it was really bizarre. And so my family would say things like, oh, you're just so lucky and yada, yada. And so it gave me a couple complexes. The first complex was people pleasing. When I saw how often people were lying and how much it meant to them for me to buy into the lie, it was like, cool. So I'm going to not trust myself so I can be accepted and loved in these spaces, is one of the lessons I learned from that. And the other lesson I learned from that is, I'm not really that, what I'm doing is not that awesome or that cool. I'm not earning anything. I'm just lucky. And so it's kind of like, I don't deserve things. So hang on to that. I'm bringing that up for very specific reasons.
Okay.
So something else, I would get overwhelmed if I looked at people in their eyes. Like it would feel like my body was filling up with energy
Oh,
and I
wow.
couldn't stand. And then, so I would always be looking down and I would talk really, really softly where people couldn't hear me because like I just didn't want to engage with people. Their energy would overwhelm me.
Wow.
And when I say energy, it would just be like a presence would fill me up. And so everybody just thought I was shy. So, oh, Candice shy. You got to look at people in their eyes and yada, yada, yada. And again, it's like I have to be uncomfortable to make everyone else happy. Lesson I'm learning. And then something else that would happen as I got older is when I got really stressed out, a little voice popped into my head and I wouldn't hear it with my ears. It would be like a thought in my mind, clear as day. And it would tell me something that was true. And it would instantly calm me. Like it would tell me things that were about to happen or things that had happened that I didn't know yet to kind of
Mhm.
put my mind at ease. So there was always this voice. And I just thought that everybody could do it and nobody talked about it because it was so natural to me.
Mhm.
And I didn't really know that that was what was psychic mediumship was, because
Wow.
as I got older, it was like what the most popular movies were, like Ghost or The Sixth Sense, which was really intense and also
Mhm.
scary. And I'm like, well, I can't
Right.
do that shit. Or if there
Right.
was a show about a psychic, they know everything that goes on. Like they're so accurate and know everything about everything, and super mystical and wooey. And I felt like I was very grounded and practical, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and then what happened is when I was in high school, like I said, I used to get things and I had a choice to make because I wanted to go into art school. I was really into drawing and comics. And my parents were like, haha, you need to get a real job. You have to go in for a real career.
Right.
It's
Right.
not going to be art. And so they convinced me to. Uh, my parents had gotten divorced, and I'd had this wake up call where it's like, if I don't get a scholarship for college, I'm not going to college. Like, my parents cannot afford this, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I was a really, really good student. I did work really, really hard. And I was like, I need a full ride scholarship. I want to move away from my parents. And I would also like a computer. And then it just so happened someone was like, hey,
Everything
Candice,
happened.
yeah, they were like, Candice, there's this scholarship. And the scholarship was to work for the federal government. They would pay for my school.
Okay.
And they'd also give you a computer and you could go to a college, and all the colleges were out of state. There weren't any in
Oh, wow.
Colorado. And so
Okay.
I was like, they gave me an application. It was due to be postmarked that day that my friend gave me, like showed me where the application was. And so
Mhm.
like my other friend had the stamp, another friend had an envelope, like, and I was in the library that day, sent it off. And of course I get the scholarship. And then I get a call where they're like, hey, so would you be okay with being an accountant? And my parents were like, hell yeah. Because in
Mhm.
my household, the gold standard was to have a job with benefits. And so I'm
Right.
like, okay, like that is, oh, that's the dream is, you know, and benefits, government, like, yes.
Do
And
it.
nobody gives a shit about dreams in my family. Like dreams are something that you do when you're about to retire. Like that's what special people get to have, not real
Mhm.
people, you know?
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. I went into accounting, even though math was my worst subject and I hated it. I hated it so much it would give me anxiety. And in my federal career, one of the things being a psychic medium was able to allow me to do, and being sensitive to people and being a people pleaser and putting other people before me, is my gifts just work together with my people pleasing. So I had this knack of being in the right place at the right time and giving people exactly what they wanted and over and above what they wanted in a good way. So I just started moving up the ranks. I would work hard and then like the stars would align, until one day they didn't. That was like, so I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to work for the federal government. And then I'm going to get out and be a writer, do my art, whatever, whatever. And flash forward, it's been like 10 years and I start panicking because I don't know how to get out of my job. I don't know what else to do. I've already been told being an artist is not realistic. I haven't been practicing. I haven't been learning because I went in accounting. And so I started to feel like I had wasted my whole entire life. And
Wow.
I was so like, if you had asked me, well, what do you want to do? I would not have been able to tell you because my whole life had been, well, what other people are telling me to do. And it
Mhm.
was like, you know, I was brought up to believe you get the job, you go to college, you get a good job with the benefits, you get a house, you get a car, and then happy. But I was
Right.
miserable. I was not happy. And then people weren't really, when I would express that I wasn't happy with my life, people were like, oh, well, now you need the like husband and kid package, like the friends and family discount. Like, okay, so get married, have a kid. And I was like, I'll get a cat, you know, and then I started traveling and stuff. And I was making like a lot of money because I got promoted to a very high position within the federal government at a very young age. I was like 27 and I was a GS 13, which people can look that up if you want to see like the different schedules of government employees. And when I got promoted, I became a supervisor. And the stress of supervising other people is what really exploded my psychic mediumship, which I had kind of ignored for a while. And
Right.
so I was instantly overwhelmed by other people's energy. And I was instantly like really attuned to how unhappy I was. And
Mm.
I got so angry. And I was kind of a person who complained. I was very passive aggressive. You cannot be a supervisor and a people pleaser at the same time. So I was able to hide behind making other people happy.
Mhm.
But what ended up happening was, as a people pleaser in a supervisory position, I just came across as looking flaky, wishy washy, like I didn't know what I was doing. And so people turned on me, they turned on a dime.
Wow.
And they're like, you know, you're a horrible supervisor. You're like I couldn't make anyone, but I mean, it was true. You know, they had, like, my bosses had faith and trusted, but they're like, you're kind of effing up right now. Like, let's just
Right.
be real, you know? And I'm like, oh no. So suddenly the place I could hide and not have to go deep within myself was gone. And
Mm.
that's the thing that cracked me open like a walnut. And I started getting physically ill, but just when I was at work. And then I was fine when I didn't have to work. And so what popped into my mind, the little voice was back, and I was like, I need to get a psychic reading. And they said, you're psychic. So, and then I didn't believe them, but I eventually, they told me to meditate, to learn how to meditate and
Mhm.
to just start taking classes. Cause I was like, how could I be psychic if I don't know what to do with my life? If I feel so trapped, I have no clues about what to do. I don't feel like I
Right.
see or hear dead people, whatever. But I did what they said, which was I learned how to meditate. I went every Saturday for 2 years. And then things started, my whole life started changing. And
Wow.
I did things the hard way. So, anyone who's watching this and you're feeling like you're on a similar path, the reason why it took me 2 years is because I was fighting myself every step of the way, trying to prove it before I believed it, try to prove it before I trusted it. And so I took a lot, took me 2 years to believe that I was even psychic. And then I did a lot of training for an additional like 2, 3 years. There's a lot of different classes on mediumship, psychic ability. I interned as a hypnotherapist and studied hypnotherapy. Like, I did all these things. And then because I was a supervisor in the federal government as an accountant, I had to take all this training on people. So, emotional
Mhm.
intelligence, how to motivate people, how to complete tasks, how to get things done. And it was like all these things coalesced and came together.
Mhm.
And I never thought that I could be an entrepreneur. I thought I was way too stupid. I thought I was just lucky at the success I had had. And I didn't have confidence, you know? And the thing that was really like, if I work for myself, how do I know what to do? You know, even
Mhm.
though I was a psychic medium. And so I stayed in my government job. And then on nights and weekends, I called it like accountant by day, psychic by night, and also
Mhm.
weekends. And the kind of readings that I gave were predictive. So I would be like, oh, yeah, someone would ask me, am I going to get married? Like, oh, yes, you're going to get married. Am I going to write a book? Oh, yes, you're going to write a book. Is the book going to be successful? Oh, yes. Or, oh, no, sorry, it doesn't look like it's going to be successful. And I hated that shit. I hated it as much as I didn't like doing accounting as a job, because when people were coming to me, I could feel them giving me their power.
Oh.
I could
Mhm.
feel if I said, yes, you're going to have this life you always wanted, like, oh my God, yeah, they're highly motivated. They go out there, they kick ass, they do it. If I say, no, I don't see that you're going to get this thing you want, they're defeated, they're devastated,
Right.
and they might just give up. And I could see people doing that. And so when I would talk to my other psychic friends at the time, and they were like, well, you know, we can't take responsibility. Everyone's got a certain amount of fate and destiny or free will. You know, it's like things are
Mhm.
set in stone essentially, but we can change our outlook or we can kind of determine whatever. But
Mhm.
if I'm over here getting high accurate information about everything else, a person isn't going to hear me if I then say, oh, sorry, you're not going to get this thing that you want the most. If I was just accurate about everything
Right.
else that they asked me about, they're going to take that to heart.
We
And
do. We take like the one negative thing and then we put the focus there as
especially if
people.
it's the thing that you are the most insecure,
Right.
that usually is the thing you
Right.
care
Are
about
they
the
going to
most,
get
that
the
someone's being
relationship? Right.
right. They're being really vulnerable and really
Mhm.
open. And so it never sat right with me personally. So I'm not here to knock people who do predictive readings. And I could also
Right.
communicate with people who have died and are in the spirit world, which was um, very satisfying. And that was great too. But again, it was like, I kind of want to do it, it wasn't where my heart was and the way I wanted to show up in my gifts. And so I had a reading that changed my life that I talk about all the time, where someone asked me if they were going to marry their current boyfriend. And I got both answers. I got a yes and a no as I tuned in. And when
Hmm.
I went into the energy of, well, I'm showing both, they're showing me right now to know, but it can be a yes if you fulfill your life's work. If you go after the thing that you're passionate about, spirit is telling me you have to do this thing.
Uh-huh.
And then I found out after I said that, she's like, oh, well, yeah, this dream job that she'd been wanting her whole entire life. And we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it was like one of those jobs that you can only do like in New York or California, like a fashion thing or something. I don't even remember now. And she had gotten an offer for the thing she'd been wanting to do forever, her whole entire life. And then at the last second, she had gotten freaked out and was like, no, I can't just move and go do something like that. That's crazy. And she turned it down and then was like, I need you to marry me to her boyfriend. And the
Oh,
boyfriend's like,
wow.
what?
Yeah.
So the fact that it wasn't something generic, it was very like real time, like you've got to go do this thing and then you're going to get all that you want. It blew my mind. It blew my mind because I started thinking about, well, what if instead of letting people ask me, is it possible for me to do this thing? If instead I went, um, hey spirit, how do they get this thing that they want? What will happen? And so that's what I started doing. If a person came to me and they're like, can I write a book, or am I going to write a book? I'm like, do you want to?
Right.
So they would own their desires. And when they said, well, yeah, that this is what I want, and then I would go, hey spirit, how does this person get this thing that they want the most? And there was always an answer. And that just blew like the doors wide open. Well,
Right.
kind of,
Right.
they like opened, they blew the doors open, yes. Because all the people that have been talking to me about what people are meant to have and what they're not meant to have,
Mhm.
bullshit. Bullshit. There was never ever a time when spirit was like, gee, sorry, their lesson in life is to learn how to have unconditional love by never having a love relationship.
Yeah.
Which, for those of you who are spiritual, you might get that. So many ladies will be like, oh, spirit's teaching me a lesson in unconditional love. No offense if someone's going through that right now. And usually it means you're pining after someone who doesn't like you back. But anyway, it was never that. It was like, okay, here's how to get something that is in your highest and best. And then the thing that blew the doors off the hinges completely, like not just doors open, but blew them off the walls, was when I would tell people, hey, spirit says that this is the next step for you to take to get what you want. A person would be like, oh, yeah, that idea came to me a month ago. That popped
Okay.
into my head in my dreams. Oh, yeah, that's been coming in my mind over the past few weeks. Or, you know what? This showed up in my life. And I'm like, oh, cool. Well, are you doing it? And most of the people were like, no. And I was like,
Mhm.
what? What are you like? First, I'm annoyed. So when that started happening, it was bittersweet because I remember thinking I spent so many thousands of dollars to learn psychic mediumship and everyone's already freaking psychic medium. Like everyone's already getting their own guidance. Like, what the hell? Like, y'all are just getting it for free out here, huh? Okay, great. And then it became apparent to me like, oh, holy shit. More importantly, everyone is being guided in real time, maybe not psychic for other people, but definitely psychic for themselves about here are the
Right.
steps to take to create the life that you want, every single person.
Hmm.
And yet there's a gap between people, and people are receiving the information. They're receiving it enough to where they're telling me, oh, yeah, I had that idea myself, but they aren't
Hmm.
trusting it because they're like, oh,
Right.
no, why would I do what spirit's guiding me to do? What's that even about? And so that's what informs my work today, which was where I stepped in as, oh, rather than me being the guru on the mountain and I'm going to read for you, which I still do, fine. But my readings have changed more than predictive into, I'm more like training wheels. Like, sure, I
Mhm.
can like tune into spirit and here's the first steps to take until you know how to do it yourself. So that's the work that I do now, which is here's how you can really tell the difference between your intuition and imagination,
Mhm.
and then giving people tools and exercises where they start trusting it, trusting in themselves so they can take action on the insight they receive in real time. And the way I define intuition, John Holland says it's the language of the soul, but
Uh-huh.
intuition is just information. It's information that you receive about anything. It could be intuition about a person's intentions, motives, how to manifest something, how things are going to turn out. It's just information that you have no business of knowing, but for the fact that you got it intuitively, you know? So people who are like, when you meet someone and you have an instant like, ooh, I don't like this person, but then your brain goes, oh, but we're supposed to be nice and let's give them a chance. And then they screw you over and you go, I knew it. I freaking should have listened the first time, you know,
Right,
like that,
right.
that like, why don't we listen the first time? You know? So my job is to help people really understand here's a difference. And
Mm.
then here's how you get tangible results. I worked a lot with entrepreneurs and did help them do things like increase their income, get more exposure and more collaborative connections and greater places than where they were. And it was crazy the things that they were able to do, but it also started helping people in their in personal life stuff. Like people were able to reconcile with friends and family
It's all
members and loved
connected.
ones.
It's all
Yeah,
connected.
it is because, and this is like the piece I love about helping people with intuition is the only way that intuition works is you've got to know yourself. You've got to
Mhm.
start being willing to see yourself. You've got to start being willing to accept yourself as you are, because
Mhm.
it is all connected. Like the same patterns that are keeping you stuck in a job you hate
Right,
are probably keeping you stuck in relationships you don't like, or
exactly.
um, vice versa. You know, it's like, so as you really hone in on one area, all these other things start happening, which was brilliant. Yeah. So
And the
that's in a nutshell, like what I do and how I got started, which I know is long winded. I know we're probably at the end of our time, but
No, 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 it's great. And the thing I'm thinking about too is the other thing that helps a person leverage is once you start trusting that, then your confidence starts to build. And I think for me, like there's nothing sexier or hotter than being around people who have lots of confidence and who are just really clear about what they want and in their own skin. So the confidence piece is really major in the work that you're doing too. You're not really calling it confidence coaching or anything like that, but that is ultimately like a great side effect of what you're doing.
yeah,
I want to ask you another question because this is where I feel like I've gotten tripped up in the past, and just to kind of step back too, I that's how we met. Was I did some coaching with you I don't even know how many years ago it was. I think I want to say like 7 years ago, but maybe it was 8 or 9 at this point. It's been a while, but man, it was such a different work. And I love the way you handled me too, because I'm someone that's hard to handle. I mean, I don't want to be handled.
lies.
I don't want people telling me, to do it a certain way. And you really did let me work within the space that worked for me, which I think that really helped me have some major breakthroughs. And I was able to, it didn't happen right away. My changes didn't happen right away, but I was able to navigate my situation and my circumstances during that time in a whole different way. And when it was time for me to make some leaps and make some changes, I was so much more grounded in the place that I did those changes from. So again, thank you. Like
Yeah,
I love the work that we do that we've done. And I love it that as much as, people can get like addicted to coaches and therapists and things like that. And I always go, you've been with the same therapist like 5 years. Isn't that long enough? Shouldn't somebody drop somebody at this point? Because and you're not that person. You're like, okay, we're gonna do this like 3 6 months, if it's a lot. I know you do, I think you do some annual packages and stuff with people, but your whole goal is to really, the type of work you're doing is you're empowering people
yeah.
at
And
every step of the process.
yeah, and it's like many of my clients have huge breakthroughs after we've done work together. And I
Hmm.
really and it's so interesting. So, of course, I grew and I had to deal with being a people pleaser, and I had to deal with um, all my other shenanigans.
Hmm.
And it was really interesting in the beginning when I saw people didn't need me anymore. My human freaked out because there was a part of me that was still attached to,
Right.
no, I need to help people. But help was, I read this book called Women Who Love Too Much
Hmm.
once. And there's a line in there that says, help is the sunny side of control. And
Hmm.
so it really is. And this is the issue. And again, not to knock what anyone needs to do. So does someone need to see a therapist for 5 years? It depends. It depends on
Maybe.
what's coming up,
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe.
Uh, but I noticed that a lot of people will stick in doing the same kinds of things and the same types of patterns. And that's just because they're comfortable there, not that it's necessarily, and there's no judgment around that. People are going to do what they're going to do and everything is going to unfold in real time. But, and this is where I love what you said about, of course, I'm not going to, you and I have a parallel. So you don't like to be told what to do. I don't like to be told what to do, even though I was a people pleaser, right? So it was a weird kind of contradictory experience that I had. But I'm finding that a lot of people are spending so much time worrying about how wrong they are, how right they are. Is this desire that I have spiritual enough, or is it coming from my ego? Is it coming from lack? And it's just, I don't like to say things are a waste of time, but it's kind of a waste of time. It's, there isn't usually a wrong or a right answer for anything. It's what is right for you in this moment right now.
Mm-hmm.
So what could be right for me in this moment could be completely different tomorrow in the new
Right.
this moment than today. And so to take the pressure off of when people need to, and I work that way with all my clients, of rather than me dictating to you, it's got to look like this, and this is the method, or this is the
Right.
system. It's like, cool. So where are you at? What is true for you in this one moment that we had? And we'd interviewed someone in one of the other interviews who said it more succinctly and way better than I did, which was Ceci
Uh-huh.
Goldman. And
Yeah.
she spoke about that, like, so
Mhm.
powerful. First steps about people being able to access and understand their intuition is first being willing to accept and understand you're human before all the woo woo stuff. Like,
Right.
what is it that you actually want? And I forgot to say that the reason why people are getting this guidance to manifest things that they want most all the time is because your genuine desires, like the true desires from your soul, you are hardwired to achieve and succeed those. Like your genuine desires are your soul's calling. So a lot of people are
Mhm.
like, what does God want me to do, or what does the universe want me to do? And it's like, well, what are you literally feeling like doing right now? Because
Mhm.
the answer is in there.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's interesting. I just, what popped in my mind is back to, if something is wrong or right, something that you really want, if something is not really in your highest and the best, if something is coming from a material ego point of view, it also doesn't matter, because in your true pursuit of that thing that you want, your life will blow up because it's not going to
Mhm.
fit. It's not going to be enough. So what happens when your life blows up? You learn the lesson that you couldn't see. Like, you see
Right.
beyond the blind spot. I mean, you have the
Right.
choice or the option to. People sometimes don't, but
Right.
a lot of people do. It's like, oh, snap. I thought I was over this. I thought I was beyond this. But oh, here's this pattern loud and clear in front of my face. I've been doing this for years. So every path that we take is to what we want, or the healing that we need to get
That we
to
need.
get the thing that we want. So it's win-win, even though
I
it's incredibly difficult and incredibly hard. So it's not to minimize the challenges, but this is why I think if people are just brave enough to believe in themselves in the moment and go, I'm just going to trust that I think it's right, so it is, and just do it.
Mhm.
And with that, people are like, but doesn't that make you a narcissist? And it's like, no, narcissism is an actual thing that happens. It's not in your brain. It's like a social disorder. But if you're not a narcissist, you won't be. And if you
Mhm.
are a narcissist, there's nothing I can say. You're going to be a narcissist, right? Like, it's
Right.
just something. It's like they're still trying to understand it. So
Mhm.
people think too much about that, and then they stay stuck and don't take any action at all. Like, when we don't do anything at all, that's when we run a risk of not really achieving or reaching our potential that we could reach in this lifetime. And there's no, like, I do not believe when people are like, here is your life's plan, here are the things that you're meant to get. The way that spirit showed that to me is, it's more like written in pencil, a short little small post-it note. It's not like this scroll of all this, like your life is so locked into stone. It's like we have so many things that we can radically shift and change. And I don't know why I'm going on about this, but like, lastly, as an example, and this is a really wooey example, but a lot of my clients will have been told by like 5 different psychics by the time they get to me, oh yeah, you can only be this level of successful, or you'll never have this. And then after we work together, like, those same psychics are like, oh man, now I see that you're going to be this and this and this. They can see all these
Mhm.
brilliant things opening up for a person. And I mention that because it's not that the psychics are wrong or bad. it's when a person gets a psychic reading, they're only reading you from the moment that you're in that moment. The minute that you change your mind, the minute that you start acting differently, you change everything around you. And
Right.
so to take the energy out of a prediction and to move it into creation. So working with your spirit self in right now to go, okay, how do I get what I want? Rather than staying in the space of, can I get what I want? Am I good enough to have it? Will this ever work out for me? That's like completely different places of energy.
Well, and I understand where like things happen. We're all human, right? So we do seek outside experts to give us guidance, whether it's with health, fitness, any number of things. I'm all about coaching and reaching out to people for help in areas where they have more knowledge than you do. I think that helps us all to grow and expand. But at the end of the day, if we're running around from psychic to psychic to psychic, it's like you're not doing the work in here. You're just asking, it's all external. And I think it's not until you are willing to, like, somebody lands in your lap first and you've got people going inside and trusting, their own God, spirit, self,
Yeah.
um, then it's like you don't feel the need to ask 10 other people for their opinions or give me another reading. You know what I
Well,
mean?
a
So
lot
I,
of,
I love I love the fact that your goal is to teach people how to trust themselves, which I have to ask you a fast question. I don't want to
yeah.
forget this because it dropped back in for me again. And I get tripped up with this a little bit too. It's like, okay, how do I know sometimes, like, is there a definitive, how do I know if it's like my intuition versus my imagination?
Yeah,
Is there like
perfect.
an easy answer to that or?
Yes. Easy for me, but yes,
Okay.
because it still involves people being able to trust. And I
Okay.
also have on my Instagram, Candice Intuitive, I have a quick guide in my Instagram bio called
Mhm.
Intuition versus Imagination that people can, it's a whole written document. And there's actually 3 documents that you'll get. The first is Intuition versus Imagination. The second is how to make your intuition stronger. And the third is how to get specific intuitive information. The
Okay.
third one's going to be on the way. But yeah, so just in case if people want more than what I'm going to tell you,
No,
and what I'm going
that's
to tell you is in the document. But
okay.
the first thing is intuition is the very first impression you receive. We
Okay.
receive impressions 6 ways, not
Okay.
always at the same time, and everyone's different.
Okay.
So it's our 5 senses. So think of your 5 senses: seeing, feeling, tasting, smelling, um, hearing, five
Hmm.
senses, and also your mind. But you don't
Okay.
think about it, you just get a knowing. So it's five
Okay.
senses plus knowing. So when you're first encountering a situation or information is presented to you in the world, you will get an immediate hit, very first impression. Immediately after your first impression is your emotional response, which is your human. That's where all your bullshit is. That's where your fear is. That's where your ego is. That's where your mind is.
Your mind.
It's the
Okay.
second impression, but it comes almost as fast as the first impression. So what happens to people is you meet someone and then you get a feeling of, I really like this person. And then immediately after, it's like, they don't like me back. No one ever does. And then there's a strong emotional response that's like, don't say anything, don't make eye contact, you just keep to yourself, you don't want them to know how stupid you are. And that emotional response is also from your human and will have you cancel out the intuitive thought that you had.
Okay.
Intuition is not emotional at all. So if you start having anxiety or fear or worry, not an intuitive hit. That's your human response to information.
Okay.
So this is where flip side, um, again, with meeting a person, you might get a note of, oh, this person's not for me. But then emotionally, I'll be like, oh, but da 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 da. And this is like my soulmate, or this is my soul program, my soul coach, my soul client. I
Blah
feel
blah.
so whatever. And it's so real because it feels real emotionally
Right. Right.
versus emotions. Your intuition didn't feel like anything. Intuition was like, nah, sis, not the one, not the client, not the fit. It was just that
Yeah.
simple, just that quick. And then it was out. It's like intuition out, you know?
Okay.
And because it's not emotional, that's where people get tripped up. So people are spending all this time about, oh, what's my gut feeling? And we might get information anywhere in our bodies. It's not just in our gut, but when we feel it, it's a physical sensation, not an emotional sensation. And
Mm-hmm.
emotions will, and so for a person, like, it doesn't matter if you love yourself, it doesn't matter if you trust yourself, it doesn't matter if you believe in the thing that you want to receive the most. Your intuition will give you the guidance regardless, which is why it's so powerful, because intuition is your soul link, that is already perfect and already in the grace of the divine presence. It's already
Okay.
connected to all that is. So it's not hindered by our lack or what we've learned or haven't learned. But then our human is limited very much so by our own beliefs, our own experiences. So when intuition presents information and our human gets freaked out by it, it's going to give you every emotional impulse it can to get you to not take any action at all.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And feeling in the body is another powerful way for people to recognize when they're getting intuitive guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be powerful because you can leave your brain out of it. What it takes, though, is people have to learn how to build an intuitive dictionary. Like, you have to know what the responses mean. And the one example I use all the time, and it changes for me. So um, if someone lies to me, I'll get a strange sensation. And I don't know where I get it now. It's like a string in my stomach is one of the sensations I get if someone's lying. And I just happened to realize, like, this person lied to me and I'm getting this sensation in my body. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel bad. It was just weird.
It was there.
It was there and it was very fleeting. But that was the first impression as they're speaking to me. It's like, why am I feeling this? And it wasn't until later until I realized, oh, snap, it's that tug again. This person's lying, whether they know that they're lying to me or not. And someone else I know, one of the students that I had in another class, after we worked together in our workshop, now she smells a skunk. So if someone's lying to her, she smells a skunk. And
Interesting.
there's no skunk around. It's just like, now,
Wow.
wouldn't that be nice to have, where if you didn't have to consciously think about it, you could have this response? And it's
And you'll
like,
be so tuned in to, so
yeah, and
tuned
it's
into it.
happening real time in the moment. Like, I'm not thinking, I'm not meditating, I'm not going deep. I'm
Right.
just being present to what is happening in my body as I'm
Mhm.
having this interaction. And so I get the same types of impression of, if something makes me feel afraid, my
Mhm.
physical body will give me a sensation of, oh, my emotions are afraid, but my physical body, I'm feeling the fear along my neck and shoulders. That's usually good. That means my human is afraid, but this thing is in my highest and best. I need to move
Okay.
forward.
Okay.
Versus I feel afraid and I'm getting a weird sensation in the pit of my stomach. And that's bad and that is danger. So there's
Right.
a physical reaction that is speaking to me that I can also perceive with my emotions.
Mhm.
So if people, but it took me a minute to understand what those things meant until I was like, oh, this happened and I'm feeling this. Now I know what this meant and I can put the two together. So being willing to build your psychic dictionary of experiences, which means you got to be present with what's going on in your body and you've got to live your life. And
Mhm.
you don't, it's not to be afraid or not to be in a space of wanting to prove if intuition is real. It's more like, oh, I'm going to take the time to learn how my intuition is speaking to me. What
Right.
might my intuition be saying? And so, depending on who you talk to, it's like Christians will say, Jesus is putting it on my heart too. Fine.
Mhm.
Atheists will be more like, my subconscious is guiding me in this way. Fine. Like, whatever the language, whatever the wording is for you, do what
Right.
you need to do, fam. But just start trusting and being aware of and open to the impressions, because it's very, and I do a couple exercises and people can go to my Instagram bio and check them out because I have meditations and everything, where we really go into exercises where you can feel
Mhm.
your angels, your spirit guides or soul. Like, you can feel it physically as we
Mhm.
get present to it. But in our day to day, we're getting all this information. So let me see what else. Intuition versus imagination. Your intuitive voice is usually softer. It's like
Okay.
very like short, direct, to the point. Your emotions, the stuff from your fear, the stuff from your imagination, way loud.
Analytical.
And it also bad mouths you. Like,
Okay.
like very mean to you. Like, this is what you always do. You're so stupid. You're just going to do it again. Da, 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 da. Like, it comes with that kind of like, and also there's a pressure that comes from your human, from your fear, from your worry. Like, you've got to make a choice and a decision right now. Sometimes intuition needs you to act very quickly, but it's a different, and this is where people have to learn what that is for themselves. Like I'm saying
Right.
it, but like the more that you start paying attention, it's like, oh yeah, like a different type of a weight pressure that
Mhm.
comes from your human versus from your spirit, when it's like, oh, I need to take an action now. And it's not a pressure that comes from like, I'm a bad person if I don't do this, I'm a loser if I don't do this. It's a different kind of pressure that
Mm.
intuition might open up for you. The
Mhm.
great thing about intuition is it will repeat itself, but it will repeat itself in a variety of ways. So if you
Okay.
are getting intuitive guidance and you don't listen to it, suddenly, and Terry, you and I do this to each other. Like your
It
friend
gets
might just say it to
louder.
you. Yeah,
It gets loud.
yeah. Your friend will say like, "Oh, have you ever thought about this?" And your friend doesn't know why they're telling you that. Like your
Uh-huh.
friend just start, you know what? For some reason, like I saw this thing the other day, and you're like, "Oh my god, yeah, I've been thinking about that." You know, how
Mm.
many times did that happen? Does that happen to people?
A
And
lot.
Terry, you're a person who does that to people. Where you're like, "Oh, you know what? Da 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 da." And I heard this on a podcast that day, and I don't know why I'm telling you this. And it's like, I know why, because this thing was on my
I'm so
mind. This was on
sick.
my heart, and you're like giving me the answer right now that I wasn't open enough to hear because I was so in my emotional feelings, you know? But you might, something that's really cool too is if you're a person who sees all the repeating numbers, or you see a license plate and the message or a bumper sticker and it catches your eye, and at the same time it hits a place in your body, you have a visceral reaction where you're like, and it's like, I'm really paying attention. This really stood out to me and it like touched my heart.
Mhm.
And it's like, that's your intuition also speaking to you, giving you a message. But people will go, that's just a coincidence, it doesn't mean anything, and then go
Right.
right back into not trusting. It's like, so intuition, because it's the language of the soul, it never gives up on us, it keeps talking to us. But it's like anything else, when you start to people will wait to trust their intuition until it's accurate,
Mhm.
but it can't be accurate until you trust it, because until you take actions on what you're receiving, you're never going to get the proof and the validation.
Mhm.
So people have to be willing to be vulnerable and just try it out, you know?
It's
So
fascinating. Okay, so can I put you on the spot real quick? And I know
okay.
we're probably going way over. I'm going to ask you one fast, selfish question, because this has been happening rapid fire and just it's been very constant, very consistent in the last month, I would say. It is not and now it's to the point where it's just so natural. It's been really supernatural for me. But I have literally like this was crazy. I got invited to a barbecue next Sunday. And my friend who had sent me the text had sent me a text like 3 hours before. I replied to the text. I had just talked to another friend who actually, in a real weird roundabout way, those two are connected. They used to work together. I literally got out of my car. I went in to see a client on Sunday. I was out delivering some things and I looked up and I'm like, Eric. And he goes, Terry. We're in our mask, right? And I said, I just sent you a text no more than 3 minutes ago. But there's so much synchronicity with people calling me when I'm right when I'm thinking about them, and not people that I'm expecting a call from, but people are just there is so much connection. Or I will be reading a word on the computer, maybe it's like just some random word, and then in the background, if I have a podcast on or there's any kind of audio, like the light or whatever, and I'm looking at the light right there on the thing, whatever it is, it just is so, it's happening with such frequency. Is
Right.
that anything? Am I supposed to be paying it? I'm just like,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
it's
it because
all
it's
it's
like,
all
oh,
connected.
good.
Like, so
But
this
like,
is,
why? Is there any reason why? Or is it just,
yeah, what's why is because you're being present and you're just aware of how things are unfolding and working out for you. Synchronicity is an example of, and there are a lot. So if there's a person who's like, well, this weird stuff keeps happening to me all the time, it's
it's just
like,
fun. I
we,
like,
yeah, but that's also, and this is the most powerful part of my work. Like people think I'm going to be intuitive and then I'm going to get all this information and then I'm going to know what to do with my life. And it's like, you've been getting all the information, you haven't been living your life. Like that's the disconnect. Like
mm-hmm,
you've been getting it, you're not trusting it, you're not living the life in the way that you intend, if you're
mm-hmm,
feeling stuck or lost or whatever. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong, it's not that you're bad, it's not even that you're stuck, It's like, you're not listening to yourself. That's is
Mm.
like that simple. You're not listening to soul. You're not listening to spirit. And you're trying. And so synchronicity is so beautiful. And the larger part of my work is the more that we intentionally connect with our soul to hear our soul's guidance, the more that we start recognizing through our perceptions just the way and the path, not just for ourselves, but for others.
Mhm.
We really are connected to everyone else and everything else in the
Mhm.
world. We're not really separate, even though we think we are.
I
And so
believe
what
that
that means
wholeheartedly.
is wherever, so sometimes people get these hits like, I need to take this different path to work. And then they get bummed out because they're like, well, nothing happened. And it's like, but you don't know if you were someone's angel that day. Like if you looked like someone that someone else knew, or your presence in a certain situation really helped someone, uh, not even that you might have avoided something that would have been bad, but like we're so interconnected that absolutely whatever, when people are like, we need to show up and be kinder to each other or make a difference or an impact in the world,
Mhm.
really being present and aware of yourself and connecting with your soul self. And I do it through intuition is my way in. People have other ways in. It's not the only thing. But when you're living in that life where you're really kind of dialed into the truth of who you are, it's like you really are sensitive in a great way, not the negative, bad way that people are used to when you're saying you're an empath and you're overwhelmed. But doors open for you. There's a
Mhm.
new path. There's this adventure. There are
Mhm.
things that become possible that were impossible, not just for yourself, but for others. So
Right.
it's like a gateway drug to miracles. Um, and you don't even have to do ayahuasca, though you can if you want. There's no judgment here, but like
Just
you
trusting
can,
the flow too, and just
yeah, it literally is a
following the
conscious,
sun,
you're
right?
being in the flow. And when you're feeling that, Terry Dean, that would be the time to be like putting your order in, like, cool. And I would also like this, please.
I
So
don't
I would like
I'm gonna buy
things.
some lottery tickets right now.
I mean, seriously, like I'd like to win the lotto today. Or you know what? I'd like to have a really nice experience today. I would like to have
Mhm.
more cash. I would like when you're starting to notice a lot of synchronicities, it's like,
Mhm.
great. Like I love this. Yes, more of this. And again, it's like flexing a muscle. So when you notice
Mhm.
more of the synchronicities keep
More
happening, it
happen.
keeps
Yeah, it just makes me
unfolding.
smile,
And
and
it's like, yeah.
I'm
And
just
literally, spirit saying, you
yeah.
become not just blessings in your own life, but blessings for others, but in
Mhm.
a way that uplifts you, not in the way that drains you. That so many people, when they want to show up and be doing work for others, they're totally like leveled and drained and can't handle it because they're not really in the flow. They're still, they're not connecting in the highest healing and best way. So I love that. And
Mhm.
for anyone watching, it's like, again, hit up my Instagram bio. We can have a chat about what are the ways to get out there and support people where it
Mhm.
is synchronous and light and happy and not so like heavy and making you feel sick or creating codependent relationships that don't go anywhere.
Yeah. You know
Yeah.
what I'd like to do and what I think would be fun, and feel free if anyone's listening to this, leave us some comments. But I think it would be really fun to have another, like, keep having some conversations with you for sure, so we can learn more about the things that we're interested in. But one of the things I'd like to tackle maybe down the road, not today, but like, what's the, because I know you channel and you do a lot of things that really kind of fascinate me, but
Yeah. I do the
I mean,
wooey shit. I do
I
the
just
wooey
hang
shit for
out, like,
sure.
but you know what I mean? It's not, this is not the way, it's not my everyday, all day life. But I would love to, tap into you and learn, like, what are some of the biggest things that you hear from folks on the other side when you're channeling, and things like that. What is it that we as humans can kind of ease into a little bit better about where we are today? And we get so worked up, our humans get so worked up about things that really don't matter at all at the end of the day. But kind of finding out some of that stuff. And I've asked you a crazy question that I wish I would have asked Laura when she was on the show. Laura, what's her last name?
Laura
Laura.
Sheck. And people
Laura
can
Sheck,
check out
yeah.
her video.
She's
It's
incredible
amazing.
too, right?
Psychic medium. Yeah.
And
Um, yeah, I would, well, just very quickly, and then, yeah, we can definitely come back. I
do
would
that.
say right now, the thing, and I said it earlier, trust in what you desire right now, just trust in it. unless it's something that's causing harm, right? Like, obviously, I shouldn't have to say that, but I know there'll someone be in the comments and like, what about if you're a serial killer? Please
Right.
don't serial kill people.
Don't trust yourself
Like,
if you want to go
you're a person, don't trust
Yeah.
yourself if you're trying to harm people. But I'm talking, most people don't have like that kind of a thought. It's like,
Mhm.
especially with women and even with men now, because I meet a lot of people who are like, my desire is just to figure out how I can be a stay-at-home parent. And there's
Mhm.
shame around that. Like, no, I got to be hitting it. I got to grind. I got to hit it hard and do this other thing. And yet it's so funny because I'll be talking to someone the same day and they'll be like, I am a stay-at-home parent, but actually my dream is I want to go out and be like a CEO, or I want to go do this thing. And they're feeling the same level of shame because whatever family, society, system they were born into has said, you are wrong for wanting this. And then
Mhm.
there's so much grief and aggravation that they put on themselves where they keep looking for proof and evidence
Yep.
that their desires are valid, that it's even possible. And I would say the thing that I have seen, and when I do mediumship, talking to people on the other side consistently, and you can look this up, I think almost all mediums will say the same thing. Consistently, the regret is the things they didn't do, not the
Mhm.
things that they did that they messed up on. It's like, no, if I had known, I would have done more of what I wanted to do.
Right.
Because now is that we're living in a very special time where now more than ever, many more people can achieve and do what they want to do that
Mhm.
haven't been able to in the past. And I know, and it's like this thing about predictions, Terri. There are so many different types of predictions, not just wooey ones, but I think of, because of the algorithm, I'm seeing in my feed so many studies, like on my social media, about, hey, Black women least attractive in America. Here's all the data. Here's the statistics. Black women least likely to get cool shit, least likely to get financing for a business. It's like we get predictions every day in a variety of ways. Scientifically, statistically, whatever, like you're from your family, people are telling you what you can and can't do, what you will or will not be able to achieve, whether it's coming from a psychic or not. And it's just for everyone. There comes a point where it's like, cool, yeah, again, not because they're wrong or invalid or to ignore things, but it's to start making decisions about, cool, yeah, that's what it says, but what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to believe in? What am I going to go for?
Take
And
charge.
then,
Mhm.
yeah, work with spirit, because you really can get there in spite of what everyone is telling you is possible. No one can tell you what is or is not possible for you. No one
Right.
has a right to, and people love to do it though. People love to tell other
Yes,
people
they
how they're
do.
wrong or bad. And I would say that's the most important thing that I did want to address in this talk, because, and this is again why people don't trust their intuition, because intuition will totally fly in the face of everything that you've been learning, and it
Mhm.
won't feel like anything. And then you'll just think you're wrong. So, yeah. Uh,
Well,
that reminds me of Clubhouse. I'm Candice and I'm done speaking. That's what we say in Clubhouse.
so okay. First of all, we want to say, and we just want to say thank you for um, letting me interview you today and ask some questions. You've been listening to 123 Conversations. I'm Terri Dean. This is my lovely co-host, Candice Thomas. And I would like for you, Candice, to tell everyone where they can learn more about you and contact you.
Absolutely. So contact me. Best way is probably through, you can drop a note in the comments, but you can slide into my DMs on Instagram. I'm at Candice Intuitive.
Mhm.
And again, in my bio in Candice Intuitive, I have so many meditations where we go into exercises about how to access your intuition, more information about intuition versus imagination. And when you sign up for intuition versus imagination, you'll also get you'll join my mailing list. And then I have classes and workshops that I do throughout the year. So you can learn more about like in-person, real time, ask questions so you can know what your intuition is like.
And
So
learning how to trust that. Yeah.
learning, yeah, absolutely. So
No,
Terri, how can
your
people get
work's
a hold?
amazing. Sorry. They can find me probably LinkedIn is the easiest. Terri, Terri, last name Dean, Dean. And we thank you for tuning in to another conversation with Candice and I today. And join us again next week. And tell your
Bye.
friends. Like.
Oh yes, please, if you like
And
this
subscribe.
video, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Check out our other amazing guests.
Yep.
If you would like to be a guest and you have a story to tell, you can totally reach out to us and we'll give you more information about how that might happen. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye.
1, 2.